Welcome back to THE Student Careers Week. I'm Jamie Ramacati with THE Student, and we're so excited to have partnered with the Inspirational Learning Group on today's webinar. Over the next half hour, you'll have a chance to hear from early careers experts from NatWest and Airbus about how you can prepare for the future of work. The conversation will be hosted by John, Head of Business Development at the Inspirational Learning Group. And John, I know you have a lot to cover today, so without any further introduction, I'm going to hand it over to you to kick things off.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Jamie. And first thing that I would like to do is thank our wonderful panelists, Sean and Emily, for joining us today. It's brilliant to have you both. Before I have you both introduce yourselves, I'll quickly introduce myself so people know why I'm involved at all. My job, basically, as the head of business development for the Inspirational Learning Group, is to every day engage with both young people and big national and multinational employers to understand how we put those two groups of people in touch with one another to close skills gaps, to enable students to get jobs and to find successful futures. So this is really what I do day in, day out. But you're not here to hear from me. You're here to hear from our two panelists. So without further ado, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And Sean, if you could quickly introduce yourself and in 3 sentences, tell us what NatWest does.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you for having us. My name is Sean OBrien. I work within our L&D function within the NatWest Group. I'm responsible for our Entrepreneurship youth program, so the delivery of all of our entrepreneurship education in schools and colleges across the UK. And in terms of what we do as a bank, you probably most famously know us for being a financial products and services organisation, providing both customers with personal financial products and commercial companies and organisations, businesses as well, with access to finance, funding, etc., and so on and so forth. But there's lots more that we do, which I'm sure we'll get a chance to discuss as we move through the rest of the presentation. Cheers, John.
Perfect. Thanks, Sean. And Emily, if you would quickly introduce yourself and your business.
Hello, afternoon everybody. My name's Emily Morrison. I look after early careers for the Airbus commercial business in the UK. And in terms of what the company does, I'm sure many of you will know our products in terms of the aircraft that we produce. We design and manufacture the wings for the aircraft in the UK, which is the part of the business that I work in. But we also have a wide variety of other businesses or other divisions within the organisation, including defence and space, cybersecurity, satellite technology and Airbus helicopters. So a very broad and varied organisation.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Emily. Now, both of you, graciously, I must add, mentioned other areas of the business that young people may not know about when we first think of NatWest or Airbus. Of course, things spring to mind right away. But what you talked about a little bit is some of the other areas of the business that people don't really naturally think of. Now, that leads us into kind of the next part of this panel discussion, which is what does the future of these businesses look like? And what things do these learners and probably myself not know about where your businesses are heading? And Sean, I'm going to ask you to kick this off, especially from the entrepreneurship side of things.
Yeah, of course. So a big driver for us over the next kind of 5 to 10 years is really looking at how we, as an organisation internally, are leveraging technology, which we know is going to have an impact not just within the financial services industry, but across all industries. So technology is a massive thing for us. We're a digital-first organisation, so very much looking at how we can innovate on the way in which we serve our customers through technology. Education and being a learning-first organisation as well is a huge part of our priorities. Actually, as mentioned, we run an entrepreneurship programme, which a lot of people probably don't guess that a bank does, or think, why is a bank running an entrepreneurial programme for schools and colleges? We also have accelerators as well, but we do a lot of other work within the education space as well, and largely aimed at trying to prepare our customers for that future landscape. So whether that's future employment, whether it's looking at actually how to manage their finances and all of the other obvious things, education is a big key component of that as well. So in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be a huge focus on the jobs market, how we create opportunity for new roles, but also leveraging digital technologies, making sure that we are equipping with our customers, our colleagues, and the youth of tomorrow, if you like, for want of a better phrase, and being prepared for that future world of work.
Yeah, I think that's a great shout, Sean. Obviously, technology influences so much of what we do. We're here set on technology platform to host this webinar. So I think it totally makes sense the way that you're trying to serve your customers with greater ease through technology. Now, Emily, I know from our prep session that Airbus is also looking at technology, but maybe in a slightly different capacity. Can you give us a little insight into the future of your business and how technology plays a role?
Yeah, of course. So anybody who's involved in anything to do with aerospace will know that the biggest driver for us is about efficiencies and reducing weight and reducing technologies to make our aircraft more efficient. And it's never been more important than it is at the moment. So there's a huge piece of work, and a huge objective of ours is around the sustainability piece and green aerospace, decarbonisation of the aerospace industry, and the technologies that sit around that. So new people coming into the organisation now will be working on that. We're about to launch the ZEDC, Zero Emissions Development Centre here in Bristol, collaborative venture with other organisations as well as Airbus to really drive through the piece around aircraft sustainability and decarbonisation, which is the future for all of us. And clearly some of that will be done through sustainable fuels, some of that will be done through weight technology, but a lot of it is done through pioneering new technologies that don't even exist yet. Hydrogen is obviously in its infancy in terms of being developed, but we're also looking at battery technology and electrics and hybrid electric propulsion and those sorts of topics. So a very, very exciting time to be in the industry and to be in a STEM career, full stop, really, at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, our business is an educational technology business. So we leverage technology day in, day out to ensure that the young people that we engage with are better prepared once they eventually, hopefully, enter your organizations. But what I'm hearing here is a couple of kind of buzzwords that I want to dig a little bit deeper into. So the three that kind of came up across both sides are technology, sustainability, and entrepreneurship. Now, to me, each one of those words kind of has skills attached to it, but they're so buzzwordy that it kind of gets lost sometimes in what those actual skills are. So Emily, since we've just heard from you, it would be great if you can dig a little bit deeper into what kind of skills link to those buzzwords and what you're actually looking for when it comes to your emerging talent at Airbus.
Yeah, so I think just to touch on the entrepreneurship word, we're really looking for people that are agile. So it's linked to that, again, maybe a buzzword, but someone who's agile, who can kind of leap from project to project. Some people who are flexible, adaptable. The pace of technological change is huge at the moment, and so we're looking for the types of individuals who are creative and curious. And I think, yeah, to sum it up, really, that word curiosity is all around entrepreneurship, like being able to be innovative, being able to be creative, but also I think at the same time, working for an organisation the size of ours or even the size of Sean's, you know, also having an understanding of the bigger picture and a resilience to be able to understand that it's such a complex organisation, a large organisation, and there will be many stakeholders that you have to get buy-off from and so on. So it's also, as well as having that entrepreneurial creative spirit, it's also having a resilience to know that things might not happen immediately, but you keep going and you keep trying and eventually you get where you want to be. So I think that's the type of skills that we're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've talked in the past about the balance between ambition and drive and patience, especially when it comes to a corporate setting. When you work in a big business, I know when I started my career, I did run into that kind of occasional brick wall of I want to move faster with this idea. And it's, no, we need to get the right stakeholders involved because there are so many moving parts and there's so many people involved in each one of these decisions. It's important that everyone is working towards the same purpose. So patience is a real key. Now, Sean, I know that you in particular have a big focus on entrepreneurship, given your role and the way that you engage with young people. Can you give us a little bit more about the skills involved and how those kind of manifest themselves in behaviors for young people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think probably just to build on what Emily said is all of the kind of general harder skills, if you like, are there in terms of we look for like data literacy, cybersecurity. I think Emily mentioned as well is a big thing for us in terms of those kind of harder skills. But really, when we talk about entrepreneurship, we're speaking about, to put it in a bit of a nutshell, and hopefully some of the students on the call have heard this term, but growth mindset, that ability to think differently outside the box, but to see things like, and the one thing that entrepreneurs do really, really well is seeing things like failure or mistakes or challenges and setbacks as opportunities to develop and grow and learn. So it's going against that traditional mold of education, which is everything has to be right. And sometimes, good enough is exactly what we need in terms to get to that value that we're trying to create for customers. So it's changing our operating model and making sure that people that work with us internally have that entrepreneurial spirit. They have that, that they're constantly seeking to improve and be iterative around their development. And they're looking to be change makers and drive that change in an organizational point of view. Again, back to that collaboration piece that we, even in my team alone, we work in scrums and we work in agile sprint methodology, a lot of these buzzwords that you hear, but effectively what we're saying is like, it's about moving quickly towards the end objective in a way that maximizes the amount of value that we can create for our customers and understand more about who our customers are through customer-centric design. So that is what we're speaking about when we talk about entrepreneurial skills, traits, behaviours, is that resilience piece, that ability to overcome failure, mistakes, and see that as an opportunity to grow and develop. That is kind of the core of what we are looking for and looking to be evidence when looking for entrepreneurial traits and behaviours. I hope that answered the question, John. But
yeah, definitely. In terms of behaviours, it certainly did. But I'm going to come back to both of you because I think having both perspectives on this next one is important as well. And this, for me, when I was applying for my first graduate role, and entrepreneurship was still a buzzword years ago, and I thought to myself, I've never started a business. I've never created a new venture. My social media is moderate. It's standard. I haven't built anything from scratch. How do I show these businesses that I can be entrepreneurial, that I do have that growth mindset, that my resilience exists? What I'd love to hear from both of you, and Emily, maybe you kick us off here, is how do young people get that across in a CV or in an interview process when they may not have a business attached to their name already?
I think we would expect people joining the organisation at that stage of their career to not have done all of those things. But I think it's really important when you are trying to portray yourself in an interview or even on a CV that you are able to demonstrate what you've done, which is curious, that's led you to be curious. So what have you done outside of your academic journey? What have you done outside of your work journey? Have you developed any apps? Have you even talking about helping people who are perhaps from different generation to understand technology, these sorts of things which seem minor, but I think if you can get these kind of things across in an interview, that's really helpful.
And talking about different types of technology, I mean, when I was applying for things, it was, you put Microsoft Office on your CV. I'm literate in that space. Are there other technology areas that you want to see on a CV to understand young people's data literacy, things that they can be calling out to you that might stand out?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how technical the role is that the person is applying for. But yeah, I mean, we would look for the people that are interested in and can talk about the work that they've done on coding, for example, and can talk about if it's more of a creative role, can talk about their social media activity, can talk about the ways that they connect. It's all about connectivity and ambassadorship, really. So yeah.
Brilliant. And Sean, what about you? How do people stand out and demonstrate that mindset in the process?
I think what you're really talking about when we speak about that entrepreneurial mindset is, can you demonstrate through, it doesn't have to be, and it's a misconception to think that when we talk about entrepreneurial skills, that what we mean is you have to have started a business and prove that you're able to run a business. That's not really what we mean. What we're talking about is those transferable traits of a really great entrepreneurial leader, which is that resilience piece. Can you demonstrate that you have been you've experienced setbacks and you've been able to bounce back from that in a really positive way. You've learned from things that have gone wrong in the past. You've, looked and seeked out innovative ways to solve problems. You've focused on understanding who your customers are, or maybe in a previous role, you've focused on trying to idea or understand how to solve a really complex issue through thinking outside the box. You demonstrate that creativity. So when we talk about entrepreneurial skills or those traits, it's not about, do I know how to manage my cash flow and set up a company? It's more about actually, do you have those transferable traits that we recognise are pivotal in being able to run a business, and we also recognise are really valuable inside a business as an entrepreneur. So I would say anything that demonstrates resilience, anything that demonstrates that you've been really creative and been able to demonstrate thinking outside the box, anything that shows that you have been able to stick at a project and iteratively see it through to an end goal. All of that sort of stuff is going a long way in being able to demonstrate your entrepreneurial behavior or your entrepreneurial value, if you like.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And to me, one of the key skills that resonates with me from an entrepreneurship mindset is initiative. Being able to put your hand up and take that next step without having to be asked. Now, a lot of us, almost all of us, are now living in that work from home, work from the office culture where we're balancing our personal lives and our work lives. Motivation levels can drop, initiative levels can drop. How would you want to see young people expressing their ability to put their hand up and have that kind of thirst to go the extra mile? What would you want to see there, Sean?
I think that comes back to Emily's point around what are you doing over and above what you need to be doing? How do you demonstrate that actually you're doing more than just enough? Because that then shows, so that could be extracurricular activities, it could be things that you're doing that you're part of, projects that you've taken the initiative to opt into. It can be a whole host of things, something that you're passionate about that's even a hobby, that kind of gives us a sense of that you are, you've got that gumption and that self-motivation and that drive to go out and go after something that you're passionate about. I think that demonstrates that's a really great way of, not just focusing on your skills and what you're great at when it comes to thinking about how to demonstrate your value within an interview or CV, but actually what are the things that you really enjoy doing, what shows a bit of your personality, but also what gives us a sense of, do you have that drive, that ambition, that motivation to do more than just enough? So I'd say things like that, extracurricular stuff is really important.
Brilliant. Now, we've talked a lot about skills, which was kind of the focus of this conversation, which is great. And I'm just looking, I've got the World Economic Forum's skills for top 15 skills for 2025, and we've covered off a fair few of them. So just for the young people in the audience, I'm going to recap some of the skills that we have talked about, just so that you know which ones are really standing out for these big employers. And it's those things like innovation, problem solving, creativity and initiative, leadership and social influence, technology use, technology design, of course, having that data literacy. Resilience is number 9 on that list. Emotional intelligence is coming up. So all of the things that these big employers are looking for are on that skills list. And for the most part, I think it's important to point out that a lot of them are soft skills. They're not necessarily the skills that we can immediately test for. They're the ones that stand out from an interpersonal level. So really important to be working on and developing those skills as we look towards joining the workforce. Now, I would be remiss to not ask you guys more straightforward questions for anybody who is actually interested in joining up into your organization. So I do quickly want to cover off a couple of those administrative questions. Emily, maybe you can give us a little bit of a preview to your application process for young people looking to come join Airbus.
Yes, so it's moved online the majority of the process now is online. I guess that's probably similar to a lot of organisations, which has its pros and cons. So, but it's the world we live in now. So the process itself usually consists of a first stage personality type questionnaire, numerical reasoning, verbal reasoning. You do like a test online. Most of our applicants tend to do quite well at that because they're in the stage of their life where they're used to doing tests. So then we have the second sift which comes through, and that is usually an online assessment centre, or it has been for the last 2 years. We used to do them physically and now they're more online. And during that process, you will be tested on all sorts of soft skills and obviously technical skills as well. So you'll be interviewed by a panel of people, and then you will be usually involved in some sort of group exercise, which is there to test your team working skills and collaborative skills with other people. I guess in terms of advice for the different stages of the process, I think certainly with the interview side of things, it's just be yourself, try to be yourself, be authentic. People want to buy from people that they like. So, you know, be engaging, be warm, but be yourself ultimately. When it comes to the group exercise, I think the piece of advice I would always give if you're involved in those and at an assessment centre is there's usually an objective that you're trying to reach as a group at the end of that exercise, but that's not always the right answer. And just have that in the back of your head that it's not necessarily the right answer that the exercise is trying to get to, but it's how you interact with the people in that group and how you're able to demonstrate your team working skills and the way that you interact with other people. So yeah, it's quite a tough process, but I think that's common now for, you know, these positions, particularly graduate positions that are highly competitive. But it's part of the process of you learning from your own skills, you learning, use all of these opportunities as practice, but also test it out in terms of the company that you're joining. You know, ask lots of questions, make sure you feel like the company is right for you just as much as they're testing whether you're right for them. So I would definitely encourage people to get as much interactive feedback to understand whether that company is right for you, as well as trying to sell yourself to them.
It's a great piece of advice, Emily. And Sean, are these types of interview processes common? Is that what NatWest is up to as well?
Yeah, so we have a we have a 4-stage process, but some people we get frustrated with because we do the good old-fashioned application form to start out. So you do your application form, and then from there you do same as Emily mentioned for Airbus. You do an online assessment test. So it'll be a situational test, and then you do numeracy, and there's some other technical questions and things like that we'll ask. If you pass that, we then move to a video interview. Again, all virtual, post-COVID world. So everything that we do, that I'm speaking about today, is all done over a Zoom call. So from the video interview, and I should point out that the video interview is not an interview with a person. Now, this is us embracing digital technology. It's actually a video interview to questions that we will preset for you. Then you do those questions, and then from there, if you're lucky enough to get through all of that, you'll then come through to our virtual assessment centre. And again, it is a really long process. And to Emily's point, it's it takes a lot to get through that process. But the reason for that, and I would highlight, is that we want to really make sure that we give you the best possible opportunity to show what you can do and where you add value and whether you're the right fit culturally for the organisation. So there's so many touch points along that journey, because we want to just make sure that, one, it's right for us to bring you on board and that we're bringing you into a role that suits, but also on the flip side of that you enjoy the idea of working for the organisation. We're a huge 60,000 plus company. So there's lots of different roles and opportunities within the bank to be able to take advantage of, but it's not for everyone. So it's as much about us vetting you and you vetting us than anything else. So once the virtual assessment centre is done, that is the end of it. And like that, though, it's a full day, so you'll have loads of opportunities to do tests and work collaboratively, if I can speak properly, but collaboratively with lots of other people who'll be applying as well. So quite a lengthy process, but definitely worth it. Albeit, if I'm speaking biasly as an internal member of the bank, but it's really worthwhile organisation to work for. So I'd say with that, probably just to build as well, just really quickly, John, and I think the same as Emily, we do grad postings. So we've got 2-year rotations as well. So if you do get through all the process, then you've got the opportunity to join our grad scheme where you get 6 months and then rotate to another area of the bank. So a really great opportunity to see all the different facets of the organisation as well.
I believe, Emily, your graduate program is rotational as well, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah, and we encourage people to get experience not only of their home area where they've been recruited into, whether it be engineering or IM, but also get an understanding of the commercial side of the business as well. So rotations are encouraged in areas such as procurement, finance, public affairs, and also being an international company. And now that the restrictions are starting to lift globally, we also encourage placements overseas as well in some of our other divisions. So yeah, it's a pretty exciting scheme.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, I will give my little piece of advice as well as someone who mentors quite a few young people and used to get paid to give advice on CVs and cover letters. This advice is never well received, but I think it's important to give. When you're applying to jobs, you kind of have to look at it as a full-time job. That is the job that you were doing in that moment. Going through, doing your research. Emily, you and I have spoken in the past about how important it is to do your actual research on the company, because a lot of these online application processes now do have keyword searches, and they do try to kind of use AI to pass some people through and then hold some people back. So ensuring that every CV, every cover letter has that adaptation, that specialization for each role that you're applying to is critical. And I think the other piece, which both of you covered, is make sure that it's the right fit for you. Interviews are two-way. They are not one-way. It's not a test for you. It is a conversation to truly see if you fit with the organization and if the organization fits with you. So we've got just a few minutes left. The final thing that I want to ask you both is back to our skill set question here. Now, we've talked a lot about soft skills. A lot of these skills are transferable. I want to know, for the two of you, which skill is the most important for your organization, especially as we look towards the next 5 and 10 years period. Sean, I'll start with you, please.
Yeah, of course. I'd say probably the most important one, and certainly when it comes to thinking about applications and applying to work within the organisation, is the skill of communication. I think it's so transferable, and it's something that I think if you don't get right, it almost invalidates a lot of the hard work that you put in the whole process. Because if you get to interview and you're not able to communicate your value, you're not able to really succinctly explain why you should work in the organisation, then all of the steps before that kind of suffer as a result. So I think if you're going to work on something as over and above just the kind of what are the skills for the role, that be thinking about actually how do you build your ability to be a really effective communicator. It holds tremendous value. You're always going to have to use it. I don't think there's very many roles now that exist where you're not going to have to do things such as this, or go and do public speaking, or go and speak to colleagues, or communicate ideas. So for me, that is a real standout skill, and something that you can take to any organisation. So if you're going to invest in something, I'd say that is something that stays with you for life. I got taught very early on about isms and ways of speaking and things that I did, that I'm a big handsy person, as you can probably see from my jazz hands on the call. But simple little things like that, being able to communicate the value and get your message across in a really effective way is so important. And back to what Emily mentioned a little bit earlier, which is people buy from people. It's an old sales saying, and people buy into you, the individual. And that's what anyone who's sitting across the table in a panel wants to see when they're interviewing. They want to know who they're talking to and see how you're going to fit. So that'd be my top tip. Sorry, I stole quite a bit of time there. Sorry, Emily.
Okay, Shannon, Emily, what about you?
Yeah, I think I just echo what you just said. In fact, Sean, I mean, communication is key, but the way you come across, authenticity behind that communication, coming across as a real person, showing your real actual personality is really important, and being warm and engaging, and yeah, you can't go far wrong. But yeah, communication, I would agree, is up there.
Brilliant. Thank you both. Now, I'm going to close with just one final word that hopefully resonates with many of the young people on this call. When I was applying for those graduate roles, it was a long slog. It was a hard process. These roles are incredibly competitive, as my colleagues here will know. You're going to get some no's in all likelihood. That's going to happen. And I went through a process where I was trying to live internationally and going through these application processes, and I got 72 no's in a row without even being offered an interview, even though I thought my CV was great and all that sort of stuff. And my best friend told me the most important word of advice I've ever received. Doesn't matter how many no's you get, only one yes matters. So keep your head up, show that resilience, push on through. There is a role out there for you. Just never forget that. I want to say thank you so much to Sean and to Emily for joining us, for sharing your knowledge. I want to say thank you to Jamie and Times Higher Education student for having us in this panel conversation. I hope it was helpful for you all, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of Careers Week. With that, I think we're going to close the session out. So thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.